I am jealous of my wife's friend. How can I stay sane and keep from ruining my relationship? Okay, so I don't want to bury the lead here, so I'll start with the fact that I am a very quiet person. I don't talk much, and it's very difficult to do so, almost surely connected to my being on the autism spectrum. My wife Becca is also on the spectrum, but she's very verbal and needs a lot of talking to feel seen, understood, and experienced. Until recently we've had an extremely verbal daughter at home, and Becca has had many friends, all of whom have helped fill the conversational gap I leave, and none of whom I've ever been jealous of. Recently, our daughter went off to college, and for various reasons Becca lost basically all of the friends she used to talk to. But she made a new friend, Nick, single, straight. She got him hired at her job, where they work in the same small office every day. They have lunch together most days. They text in the morning before work, after work, at night. They go out at least once a week, and it's usually something like this, example from a couple weeks ago. Dinner at an Italian restaurant, BYOB. They share a bottle of wine over dinner and talk for an hour or two, then go back to his place for a movie. After the movie, they go for a walk along the train tracks and discuss it. Typically somewhere around 5 hours total. Another time they drove out to the woods an hour or so away for lunch, hike, and dinner, about 8 hours. Nick has started coming with us to movies, concerts, trivia nights at the local pub, to our house for special events. He comes with us to various outings like flea markets and the Ren Fair and such. After so many fights about it, Becca kicked me out to stay with our daughter in another state for a few days, so we could cool off from the fighting and reflect on our own selves. It lined up well because Nick was going to be away on vacation, so that was not an issue. But Nick came back early, and of course they hung out. He was over at our house so late and they got so drunk I had to just send a good night text instead of our usual FaceTime. She replied about an hour later, maybe 12:30 or 1:00, saying she hadn't looked at her phone. The thing is, when we're together, she always responds to Nick's texts immediately. I actually, truly don't think they are being romantic, but I do feel like, well, I don't know. If he's taking the place of our daughter and her old friends, do I have any right to be jealous that she wants to talk to him all the time? I feel like an asshole, which she agrees with, crazy, and lost. I'm definitely jealous of something, probably that this guy can connect with my wife to an extent that has been super difficult for me, and that I have tried for over 20 years. It highlights all my worst deficiencies, the things I already hate myself for. I get even more quiet and withdrawn, I protect myself by trying not to care, I get angry and yell, I try to make her feel bad and back off of the relationship even a little, but she insists she's not doing anything wrong and to compromise at all would be to abandon her principles and admit she's done wrong. At this point I feel sad and lonely and guilty all the time. I try to just shut up about the whole thing, but eventually, somehow I bring him up and I'm the problem all over again. I don't know if our marriage will survive this, and all over, as Becca puts it, you don't want me to have a friend. You don't want me to have anyone to talk to. Edit, because I've gotten some comments like this, I don't want to misrepresent things. With all the things she's doing with Nick, and all the times he comes along with us, I still get more time alone with Becca than he does. He's not there all the time. It still bothers me though when we're out somewhere and she's texting him about something cool we're seeing that he'd appreciate. Comment. I'm sorry but I'm getting the same vibes you are. This is not a healthy friendship, especially when it is jeopardizing your marriage. She is spending all her hours with a single man, ignoring your texts when she's with him. Having him over at your house, getting drunk with him while you're away, at her request, I might add. I'm not buying this platonic thing. You are allowed to voice your concerns, and if she keeps shooting you down, you're going to have to make a decision what you want the end result to be in this. Perhaps marriage counseling may help shed some light on things and allow you two to work this out. Divorce seems like a better option. Marriage counseling only works if both sides can admit there is a problem. If Op's wife only sees him as the problem and not her romance with someone 17 years younger, then it would be a waste of time. At least since their daughter is no longer a child, he won't have to worry about fighting over custody and child support. Your wife is dating this guy, Nick. They go out to dinner. You are now the third wheel at the movies, etc. If she had other friends that were there, it still wouldn't be okay because she isn't prioritizing your marriage. This is not the behavior of a spouse that is 100% committed to the relationship. Dude. He's not taking your daughter's place. He's taking your place. Long hours alone with your wife, drinking wine, and sharing meals. That is a bit much. Then, her choosing him over you. Him coming back from vacation early when you were away is sus. I would place a nanny cam in your house, possibly a few. Hire a PI and have them follow these two while they are on their dates. It is what it is. I'm afraid you will find she is either having a full-on physical and emotional affair or it's just an emotional one. Either way you slice it, she's choosing another man over the one she married. Yeah, this is way too much, Nick. You're not telling her she can't have friends, you're telling her that when this guy starts tagging along on every single outing with the two of you and she still feels the need to spend hours chatting one-on-one with him, this has passed the point of friendship and is seriously encroaching on your status as her partner. Which means if she wants to stay married, things with Nick need to go on pause while she goes to counseling with you to figure out why that's happened and how to fix it. But honestly, it doesn't sound to me like she wants to try. Yeah, but even when he's not there, and how many of those invitations have been your idea, or something you even got to weigh in on, he's there via text and she's more focused on him than being present with you. Her priorities here are concerning. Don't let yourself be talked into downplaying that because you're worried you're not being fair to her. When I reached the point where you tell us that she has dinner with him and goes to his place, I already had enough. Everything you wrote after this just makes it worse. Why did your wife lost all her friends at once? This is weird. Did she do something inappropriate like flirting or even cheating with one of her friends and now the cycle of friends is blocking her? Even if nothing happened and she is lonely and needs friends, the situation with Nick is not normal and healthy. Their behavior doesn't sound like friendship, more like dating or FWB. You can tell your wife that either she cuts off the private contact with Nick and searches for normal friendships or well, you know. But go to a divorce lawyer before you talk with her. He knows best what to do and how to prepare. Good luck. Marriage counseling is your best bet. But right now you should go talk to a divorce lawyer. You need to understand where this is going to go and how that will work. You do not have to divorce, you do not have to even let her know you spoke to a lawyer, but you need to know what to expect. Understand she is at the very least in an emotional affair with him. And the most probable thing is she is having sex. I mean, really, come on. Your gut is not wrong here. As for your behavior and reaction, you probably could not have chosen a worse way to handle this. Marriage counseling for that now. But most likely your marriage is over. She has already basically told you her affair partner, friend, is more important than you. Next story 2. What should I do about my wife buying a car without asking me? First off, I love my wife. She's literally my best friend. We live a very comfortable middle-class life. I own a business and we do well for ourselves. My wife is a stay-at-home mom for our 2 kids. We own a decent-sized house and plan on sending our kids to the local private school, since the local public schools don't have high ratings. Basically about 2 years ago my car was totaled out in a wreck when I was hit by a drunk driver. At the time we needed to buy a new car to replace mine. We decided my wife would receive the new car, and I would just take her old car. My commute is less than 10 minutes, so the car I drive isn't really important to me. We went to the dealership and purchased the car. She chose a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. It was a big deal since it was the first new car either of us had ever owned. We were blessed to be in the position to buy the car without financing it. Fast forward to a couple months ago, my wife brought up the idea of her wanting a newer and nicer car. Keep in mind she was driving around in a $50,000 car. I without hesitation said no, and that we needed to get 5 to 6 more years out of her current car. I later found out that she wanted a nicer car since one of her friends, who she's constantly competing with, purchased a new Mercedes. The thing is that her friend doesn't have kids or a mortgage. Last night I pull into the driveway and in the garage is a brand new Mercedes. My son comes running out the house telling me mommy's new car. I go inside and my wife confirms my worst fear. I was furious to say the least. I decided to just leave instead of arguing with her in front of the kids. I feel like she betrayed me by making this huge financial decision without even calling me. I budget our money every month. We have goals together about how to use our savings. We are saving up for our daughter to start school soon, and on top of that I'm working to pay my wife's student loans off. We also have a mortgage every month. This was a stupid, super reckless, unnecessary purchase. From what I can see in our bank account, my assumption is that she traded in the Jeep and paid 35k more with money from our savings. She's never bought anything major without me before. This is completely a new thing. I'm not sure on exactly what to do in this situation. I'm positive we can't return the car. I'm debating on trying to sell it, taking the loss and getting her something used to drive. She's been trying to call and text me since last night. I have no clue how I'm going to deal with this. I'm not going to leave her. That's not an option. What should I do? Thanks for any advice. Update. First, I would like to thank everyone for their support and advice. The current situation is that my wife and Phil are going to the dealership right now. My Phil assured me that he was going to get this sorted out. I'm positive he will have better luck convincing them to take the car back since he's a preacher himself. Apparently the story of what happened yesterday is that she went with her friend, the one she likes to compete with, into the city yesterday to have lunch while her Mercedes was being serviced. At some point they started looking at cars and the salesman and her friend somehow convinced her to buy this car, and that her husband me would be happy that she's happy. I've only talked to my wife on the phone today. She's being very apologetic, and saying she'll do anything to make it all right. I'm going to answer a few questions asked in the comments. The title for the Jeep was solely in her name. She legally didn't commit any fraud since the cash used was hers just as much as mine. Her father is more livid than me about this, especially since they come from a rural working-class town in South Georgia. Her family isn't materialistic at all from what I've seen and heard. I've been with my wife for 11 years and married for 7 years, which is why I refuse to leave her. We've been through a lot of things together in that time. In all that time I've never noticed her be materialistic. She's never spent anything over $200 without asking me. She's usually more frugal than me. She is very aware of our bills and finances. Her student loan balance is $17k, which we were planning on paying off by next year. She also knows we had to have new roof installed recently, which cost us $12k, she wrote the check. I personally always ask her before I spend over $500 on anything. She's never actually has had an adult job. She worked on the family farm in her teens until college. After she graduated college I started our business. Before the kids she would run the office in our company. Still not sure about what I'm going to do regarding counseling or taking her off the accounts. Update #2 The dealership refused to take the car back for what we paid for it. Apparently all vehicle sales in Georgia are final unless stated otherwise in writing. They said since the warranty has already been punched and it's a used car that they could give us the Jeep back and $12k. Phil took my opinion and I told him to just bring the car back and I'll figure out a different way to deal with this. Phil offered to pay the difference from his savings, but I declined the offer. Apparently wife did not want to drive her new car 2 hours back, so my Phil will be driving her car back. This will probably be the last update for today. I know it's probably going to be a long night. I'm not mad anymore, just disappointed. At this point I'm going with the mentality of what's happened has happened and how do we get past it? The friend has to go for sure. Comment. That is financial infidelity. You need to go home and have a calm conversation. I would discuss taking the car back, that competition with a friend is not healthy, and set a price limit for how much you each can spend without consulting each other. I've sadly experienced it twice while married. One time a sports car was purchased by my husband and the second time my husband was planning to take out a $500,000 loan to buy a business without my consent. Not married to him now, sadly. There definitely needs to be some kind of consequences to what she has done. Taking away her ability to do such a thing again. Like you suggested, taking her off the accounts and maybe giving her a household allowance. But she majorly screwed up for sure. I'm glad she sees she screwed up and is trying to rectify it. Basically, your wife was willing to put your family in financial jeopardy so she could feel like a big shot in front of her friend. Once trust is broken, it can never be regained. Take her name off of all financial accounts so that she doesn't decide on down the line that she needs a $12,000 Chanel purse. A few more of these impulse buys and you could be looking at a bankruptcy filing. I don't understand how one could write a $35,000 check without talking with your spouse. Good luck getting your Jeep and money back. I work at a dealership and we aren't in the habit of giving your money back and unwinding a deal. If the Mercedes is brand new, then the dealership would have to be willing to lose money because the car has been registered with DMV and is no longer able to be resold as a new car. She signed a contract and traded a vehicle. I wouldn't get my hopes up if I were you. Wow. That was a terrible thing to do, and for such a shallow reason. You can't let it go and set the precedent that she can get away with something like that, so either the car goes back or SGE gets a night/weekend job and pays back your accounts to make up the difference. Has she ever worked full-time? Do you sit down regularly and go through your budget, savings, retirement, etc.? Because that's a big chunk of change. She basically just pushed your retirement back a year or two so she could show off. Just wondering if she's ever been a self-supporting adult or if it's a money has just always appeared situation.